Welcome everyone to the Get More Done with Keyboard Shortcuts webinar. This is a presentation of the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training. My name is Matt Trotta and I'll be your host for the webinar. Our instructor today is Eleonora Morell.
Hello.
At this point, we're going to mute everyone's phone to keep background noise to a minimum. If you have questions at any time, you can click on the Raise Hand button at the bottom of the screen. It's a little icon of a hand in the air next to the reactions or smiley button down there. Once called upon, I will unmute you and you can speak to us using your phone or a microphone attached to your headset. So I'd like everyone to try raising their hands now, please. Please click on that Raise Hand button and you'll see a raise hand icon next to your name in the participants panel. There we go, excellent. And if you could use that button again to put your hands down. There we go. Now we're all professionals with the raise hand button. You can also type any questions or comments you have at any time during the webinar in the chat box. Again, the chat panel is at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And if it isn't open, please click on the chat button you see at the bottom right. Once it's open, make sure everyone is in the Send To area, and then you can type your thoughts and send them along, and we'll all be able to see them. As I mentioned previously, today's webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training, and many people refer to it as the partnership. Some of you may be wondering what that is. Well, for those of you who aren't already familiar with us, the partnership is an organization that administers education and training programs for CSEA-represented employees through labor management cooperation. It is funded through negotiated agreements between New York State and CSEA. The partnership offers in-person classroom training, online learning, educational advisement services, grants, tuition benefits, labor management services, and other education and training programs, including this webinar you're attending right now. The partnership is a joint labor management organization whose mission is to promote career mobility, improve job skills, support workplace safety and health, and promote effective labor management relations. You can learn more about us on the website or by contacting us directly, and I will provide that contact information again at the end of the webinar. So now that we all know a bit more about the partnership, we can get started with keyboard shortcuts. And I'll now turn the presentation over to the wonderful Eleonora Morell.
Thank you, Matt. Nice to be here this morning. So as Matt said, my name is Eleonora Morell. I've been a computer trainer and technology person for many years now, over 25 years, and I always tell the story of way back when I first got started, my friends knew I knew keyboard shortcuts, so they took my mouse away from me one day and told me, could you get through Word without using keyboard, with only using keyboard shortcuts? And I did. For the whole day, I learned all about keyboard shortcuts, so I'm excited to share that information with all of you. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you a question. What are keyboard shortcut functions? If you had to describe them to someone who didn't know what they were, how would you do it?
Okay, sorry, looks like the slideshow jumped ahead.
Yep.
But we're asking you to use the chat panel and tell us how would you describe keyboard shortcuts or functions. So use that chat panel and let us all know. So someone just got to your office, doesn't know what you're talking about when you say keyboard shortcuts. How do you describe those? Yeah, buttons that help you do things faster.
Yep.
That's true. They do speed it up.
Shortcuts. Ways to do something faster. Access work, time saving. That's a good one. Time saving. Excellent. I love it. Yeah. Good. All right. So thanks for sharing, and we'll ask questions away on the chat panel or via surveys. So pay attention to that. You can keep putting them in there. Work smarter, not harder. Love it. So keyboard shortcuts are single keys or combination of keys that can be pressed to perform an action that would otherwise be accessed through the menu. For example, after highlighting text, you can right-click and select Copy from the menu. That appears to copy your clipboard. okay? Or you could use a keyboard shortcut to do the same thing. Function keys refer to the row of specialized keys at the top of the keyboard. They are listed from F1 through F12. Function keys can be used alone or with other keys to form more shortcuts. Essentially, keyboard shortcuts and functions allow you to use the keyboard in place of your mouse for everything from simple copy and paste to more complex actions like moving around the screen. We'll talk more about those in a few minutes. Today you'll be presented with ways to use your keyboard to help you be more productive. We'll be covering functions, shortcuts, and modifiers. These features may be new to some of you. Whatever the case, today's webinar will have something for everyone. First, we'll explain the benefits of using keyboard shortcuts. We'll talk about the fundamentals of shortcuts and functions, including the basic keys. Then you'll identify the most essential shortcuts to help you work smarter, not harder, which is exactly what somebody said in the chat panel. And finally, we'll talk about some tips and best practices to help you work more effectively. Another note, before we dive in, keyboard functions and shortcuts are different for Windows and Mac computers. This webinar will cover Windows shortcuts, which are the computers we use here in the state. This list of topics will act as a kind of roadmap as we go through our webinar today. First up, let's talk about the benefits. Some of you may be thinking, why should I stop using my mouse and start using keyboard shortcuts, keyboard functions and shortcuts? Are there any benefits? Actually, I'm curious, does anyone feel that way? If you do, please raise your hand.
Please click on the raise hand button if you have wondered about the true benefits of keyboard shortcuts. So if you thought, what are the benefits? Why should I even bother? Please raise your hand. I expect we'll see a few because that's why they're here today. Yes, there we go. Thank you to those that are raising your hand. All right, so there's more than a few, Eleonora.
Okay. I can't 100% see the people raising their hands, but yeah, let me see if I hit refresh. I think I have to do that. Oh, well, I'll figure that out. So good. You let me know. I'm glad to see people want to raise their hands. So thanks for sharing. So maybe some people aren't 100% convinced, so we'll see. Even if you know and use even a few keyboard shortcuts or functions, you know how useful they can be. If you're new to this, we're going to take a couple of minutes to explain why they're so life-changing, as one of our participants also said in the chat panel. So let's talk about the benefits. The first benefit is the time saving. Using keyboard shortcuts saves time over using your mouse. Don't believe me? According to a study by Brainscape, using keyboard shortcuts will save you 64 hours per year, and that's a good chunk of time. This alone should be a incentive to use keyboard functions and shortcuts. But if you need more reasons, Superman, those time savings translate to more productivity. Ever hear of the term do more with less? Using shortcuts allows you to be more productive, which means you'll get more done in less time. Shortcuts allow you to quickly navigate and work without using a mouse. Both hands are already on the keyboard while you're typing, so why bother taking your hands off the keyboard? Moving to the mouse adds an extra step. It's all about working smarter, not harder. Do you want to be like Superman, faster than a locomotive? Use shortcuts. And how many times have you taken your hands off the keyboard and then put them back, and then all of a sudden you're off a key, and now you're typing mishmash? So there you go. So that's not fun. So multitasking. The next benefit of using keyboard shortcuts and functions is that it allows you to multitask more easily. Many of us multitask, or at the very least, we have more than one program open at a given time and switch between those tasks throughout the day. If that sounds like you, the good news is that there's a shortcut that was created with users like you in mind. Pressing the Windows key plus Tab will display all of your open applications, files, and folders so that you can find what you're looking for more quickly. We'll get into more detail about specific shortcuts later in this webinar, but that's just one example of a very useful one. So you'll hold down the Window key and then tap on Tab, and it'll move you through pretty much all open windows. So that's kind of sort of what it's doing for you. So there you go. Okay. The final benefit I want to talk about is especially important if you find yourself at a computer for more than a few hours a day. Health benefits. How many of you have experienced wrist pain after using a computer?
Okay, please use that raise hand button and let us know if you have experienced wrist pain after using your computer for a long amount of time, I would imagine. I know I have.
Yeah, I have too. Sure have.
Yes, we have, let me see. We have about a third of the hands up, I would say. So yeah, sorry about that, folks.
Yeah. So, yeah, more. Yeah, elbow pain, sure. Right. So it might be wrist, elbow. So yeah, it's somewhere and your hand falls asleep. So yeah, all these things are because we're using our mouse a lot. So thank you for sharing. Using keyboard shortcuts and functions can actually help reduce the risk of RSI, repetitive stress injury, and carpal tunnel by cutting down on how much the mouse is used. You may not realize all those small wrist movements involved in operating a mouse, but they build up over time. Many of us spend a good part of our workday using a computer, so it's important that we take care of ourselves and try to find ways to eliminate unnecessary stress, especially on our wrists. If you haven't had wrist pain, RSI, or carpal tunnel, then use keyboard shortcuts and functions to keep that away. Before we continue, I'd like to ask if you have any questions about the benefits of using keyboard shortcuts and functions.
If you do have a question, again, you can click on that raise hand button to speak with us, or you could type it in the chat box. I'll give you a few seconds for that. So any questions on what's been covered so far? Health benefits. Not the first thing I would have thought of about keyboard shortcuts, but good to know.
Yeah, yep. I guess, yeah, I don't experience too much of that carpal tunnel because I do use a lot of keyboard shortcuts. So I guess I switch around. I'm using my mouse, I'm using my keyboard, I'm using my mouse, I'm using my keyboard. So maybe I have kept it away all these years. So thanks for sharing, everyone. I appreciate that. So now let's go over the fundamentals of keyboard shortcuts. As we mentioned before, function keys are the keyboard keys that perform commonly used commands. They are located at the top of the keyboard and can be used alone or combined with other keys to create shortcuts. For example, F5 refreshes the active page in a web browser. Shift F3 toggles selected text between upper, lower, and all caps in Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook. Take a look at your keyboard. Do you see the function keys?
Please use that raised hand button if you have located the function keys on your keyboard, if you have a keyboard in front of you.
Yep, great.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
job. I see some yeses. Okay. You've located the function keys. Finding the function keys was easy. The assigned action of each function key may differ depending on the program and sometimes the keyboard. Newer keyboards, for example, have symbols on the keys, such as a sun for sun image for screen brightness, or even a microphone or a little speaker thing. You can program your function keys if you have if you are more of an advanced user. Shortcuts are a combination of keys that provide users with other ways to do something normally done with a mouse. Many of the same shortcuts can be used across different programs. For example, you can use the same copy-paste shortcuts in Microsoft programs like Word, Outlook, and even web browsers. The difference between shortcuts and function keys is that they extend beyond the top row of the keyboard and are accessed by using modifier keys. But what are modifier keys? A modifier key temporarily changes the standard action of another key when pressed at the same time or one after the other. Used by themselves, modifier keys often do nothing. For example, pressing the Control key by itself will do nothing, but holding it down and tapping on another key can format text or cut text. Modifier keys give you a certain amount of power and control. There are 5 modifier keys on a Windows keyboard: Shift, Control, or CTRL, FN, or Function, Windows, the Windows key, looks like a little window icon, and Alt. What are some common keyboard shortcuts that you know that use these modifier keys? You can list any, including ones we've mentioned so far.
Okay, folks, please use the chat box and type in any other keyboard shortcuts or functions that you know that use the modifier keys, which are Shift, Control, Function, Windows, and Alt.
Oh yeah, there's a good one. Control Alt Delete. We all know that one.
Yeah, I think Control is going to be in here a lot, right?
Yep. Control C, Control V, Control A. Sure. Select all. Windows I. Yep. Control Quote. Control V. Windows plus the decimal. Yep. Interestingly enough, nobody's talking about the function key. Control Insert. Yep. So lots of them out there. Thanks for sharing. This is also
Function.
Yeah.
Function, is that more common on laptop keyboards? I know on mine I have to use that more.
Yeah, typically it's more common with laptop keyboards and maybe some newer modern desktop keyboards where the F keys can perform two functions, and we'll talk a little bit about that momentarily. But yeah, so not a lot of people mentioning the function key. So, but thanks for sharing. Gives me a good snapshot of what kind of shortcuts, say that 10 times fast, are important to you and what you already know. So yeah, I like seeing that some people are using those Windows keys because there's a lot with that. We'll be covering some of these and more. First, let's discuss each of the modifier keys. So the Shift key. First up, Shift key. The Shift key is normally used to capitalize letters or access punctuation, such as a colon or quotes and question marks. But the Shift key is even more powerful. For example, pressing Shift and the F10 function key opens the shortcut menu for a selected item. So instead of right-clicking on it, you can do Shift F10. Want to take the Shift key to another level? Use Shift Delete to permanently delete an item without moving it to the recycle bin. So you have something on your desktop, a file on your desktop, and you want to trash it. You could press the delete key, but if you do Shift Delete, you'll get a message saying, are you sure you actually want to do this? Because it will not move into the recycle bin. It is permanently gone. There are actually two Shift keys on the keyboard, one on the lower left and the one on the lower right, so that when you're typing, you can use the one that's most convenient to you. You'll notice some of the other modifier keys are grouped around it as well, including the next one we'll talk about, the Control key. So Control, or CTRL, is one of my favorites. It's used in combination with other keys as shortcuts for menu commands. For example, Control C allows you to copy. Ready to take the Control key to another level, press Control Shift Escape in your upper left-hand corner to open up the Task Manager window. So I know a lot of people do Control Alt Delete and then click on Task Manager, but if you do Control Shift Escape, that opens up the Task Manager. As with the Shift key, there are two control keys on the keyboard, one on the right and one on the left. So let's now look at the next modifier key, the good old function key, or FN. The function key is typically located to the right of the control key on the lower left of the keyboard. If it's not there, it may be on the right side, and I've actually seen it at the top of a keyboard as well, so that was weird. There's usually only one of these keys on the keyboard. Some keyboards don't even have a function key and instead have dedicated functions on the top of the keyboard. The function key activates the additional features of the function keys. In other words, it gives you the power to reach another level on the keyboard. For example, pressing FNF3 might increase your computer's brightness. Common function actions include play, pause, fast forward, and rewind. You may see these symbols on the function keys themselves. And I would say it's the opposite. Nowadays, most keyboards, whatever picture is on the function key, that's what it does. Like if I press my brightness, my little sunshine, it makes my screen brighter. But if I want to do FNF3, I have to do FNF3. So that does the, changes my keyboard shortcut. It's important to note that, though, that assigned functions can vary depending on your keyboard manufacturer and your machine, so it's best to look them up according to what keyboard and computer you have. Ready to unleash more power? Let's look at the fourth modifier key, the Windows key, or the Win key. The Windows key is normally located to the right of the Control key at the bottom left of your keyboard, and again, there's only one of these on your keyboard. When used alone, the Windows key opens up the Start menu. If you want to take this key to another level, you can use it in combination with other keys to perform various commands on your desktop. Did you know it's best practice to lock your computer before you leave it unattended? Does anybody know what the keyboard shortcut is to lock your computer quickly?
If you do know what the keyboard shortcut is for locking and unlocking your computer, please type it in the chat box.
Got one person, got it.
Control-L, Control-Alt-Delete.
Yep. So
Yeah, there's
using
the one
Windows.
I use. I use Windows-L. That's a fast one.
Yep. So yeah, Control-Alt-Delete will work, but we're talking about the Windows key now, so there you go. You've now learned that you don't have to press all three of those keys. You can just hold down the Window key and tap the letter L, and you would lock your screen. So yeah, some of you got it, so you know, but either way, it's always good to lock your screen when you leave your computer. So yes, when pressed together, the Windows plus L will lock the desktop. There you go. Excellent. And finally, we have the Alt or alternate key. The Alt key is used to change or alter the action of the keys pressed. By itself, the Alt key will allow you to navigate the ribbon and other menus with your keyboard. The Alt key can also be combined with the Tab key to navigate quickly between open windows or programs. So if you're in Word and you press the Alt key, you're going to see all sorts of letters on the buttons of the ribbon, and then you can just press those letters to access that command. So that's how that works. So here you go. Speaking of which, as I mentioned a moment ago, the Alt key used alone allows you to access menus. In this example, the Alt key has been pressed in Microsoft Word. Letters appear under each tab of the ribbon. For example, the letter F displays underneath the File menu, and the letter H displays under the Home tab. So after you press the Alt key, you can then press the corresponding letter under each tab to open it. For example, if we press the letter F, it will open up the File tab. This shortcut may be useful to you if your mouse or touchpad stops working. It's also an essential part of making computers more accessible. So somebody who can't use a mouse because they have a diverse ability, that's how he or she will navigate using Alt. So using keyboard shortcuts. So here's a tip. Now that we know the modifier keys, I want to take a moment to show you how to identify keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcuts can be found by hovering the mouse over the icons on the ribbon, which is the top row of the Microsoft program. So if you hover over it, in this example, the mouse is hovering over the copy button and the shortcut tip is shown, Control-C. You can do this in most programs, but shortcuts aren't assigned to all buttons. If a shortcut doesn't appear after hovering your mouse over a button, that means there's no shortcut assigned. Control-V is the shortcut to paste. And of course, another useful shortcut is cut, which can be accessed by pressing Control-X. So copy, cut, and paste are some of the most common keyboard shortcuts that can help you move text and images quickly within or between documents. If you haven't used them before, they are a great place to start. If there's a program like Word, Excel, or Outlook that you spend a lot of time in, you can use this trick we discussed to find shortcut for tasks that you perform most often. So just rest your mouse on a button in the ribbon. If there's a keyboard shortcut, the little tooltip will show you that keyboard shortcut. So there you go. So what does a modifier key do? So it's time to test your knowledge. In your own words, what does a modifier key do?
Please let us know what you think modifier keys do, and you can use the chat panel again for that.
Yeah. These keys
Yeah,
do
there's a good
something.
Thank you, Shauna.
Yeah.
Sure, it gives you another function with the original key, right?
Yeah. Well, helps other keys function. Yep. Takes the keyboard to another level. Supersize. But used by themselves, they do nothing, except for the Alt key. The Alt key will do something. If you just tap the Alt key in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, it will do something. It'll open up all these letters. Yeah, cool. Change a key function. There you go. Perfect. All right. These are all great. Modifier keys change the normal action of another key when pressed together or in succession. They are the basis of nearly all keyboard shortcuts, so it's good to get familiar with them. Before we continue, do you have any questions?
Any questions or comments, you can raise your hand or type them in the chat box.
Great.
No, not yet for Janet. Thank you.
All right.
And like I said earlier, at any time if you have one, put it in the chat, and when we can, we'll pause and respond. So I'll be watching that for you, Eleonora, and
Great.
everyone.
Thanks. I can see the chat. I can't see the raise hands and things like that, but that's okay. You got me, Matt. Our next topic is essential shortcuts. As we mentioned earlier, using functions and shortcuts can help you be more productive. And let's remember, using them can save you approximately 64 hours a year. There's a lot of shortcuts at your fingertips. Some are more helpful than others. We are going to talk about 10 shortcuts every computer user should know. There is a shortcut list intended to make every action. There is a shortcut list intended to make everyday actions easier. There are many more. So this is a list. So please refer to your handout for a complete list of shortcuts and other information.
And if you haven't printed or viewed those handouts yet, that's fine. You can always do so after the webinar. They were attached to the email that notified you of your enrollment in the webinar. So if you go back to that email, those are the attachments on that, or the handouts that Eleonora mentioned.
Yep, so great. So let's go through that list of top 10s. All right, Control S, love it. This powerful shortcut saves your work in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, and just about any other program. Although many of these programs auto-save, it's always a good idea to manually save before you close a project. I use Control S anytime I've made a big edit. You just want to make sure I just want to make sure none of my work is lost. So absolutely, Control S. You can also save web pages by pressing Control S. That will open a Save As window, and you'll have you can choose a file name and a place to save it. So we'll just save like the HTML. So Control S. There you go. Control W, close tab or window. So once you've saved your work, you can use Control W to close your current open window. It works in all Microsoft programs like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and Outlook, as well as your web browser. The beauty of this shortcut is that it closes your currently open window, not the entire program. This means if you have multiple documents, spreadsheets, or windows open in a single program, it will only close the current one. In a browser, it will close the current tab. If you only have one browser tab open, this shortcut will close the whole browser window. So Windows D, show the desktop. Today, more than ever, we find ourselves working with multiple applications in Windows. How often do you find yourself scrambling to navigate to your desktop? You've read all your emails, finished the spreadsheet and report. Now you need to go to your desktop to start a new task. How do you quickly get to your desktop? Do you pick up your mouse and try to minimize each window individually? Maybe you click on the Show Desktop button in the bottom right-hand side of your screen on the taskbar. That's quicker, but you have to have serious mouse precision because it's so small, and most people don't even know it's there. So use the keyboard shortcut Windows D to quickly navigate to your desktop and minimize all open windows at once. You'll save time, minimize frustration, and minimize windows, and save your wrist. So, Windows D. Control A, select all. This has to be one of the most used shortcuts of all time. How often do you find yourself having to select an entire document, spreadsheet, email, or web page? Do you pick up your mouse and click and drag to select the information? This takes mouse precision and patience. Using Control A will allow you to quickly select the information. Still not sold on this shortcut? There's more. This shortcut will also select all objects. So if you're working in PowerPoint and need to select all objects on the slide, use this nifty shortcut to make your selection easier. Alt-Tab will switch or toggle between open application windows. Alt-Tab, also referred as the tab switcher, and rightfully so. A quick tip for this shortcut is to press and hold the Alt key with your left thumb and then press Tab with the pointer finger of the same hand to open up the tab switcher view. You'll see all your open windows at once as small tiles. There will be a white box around the currently selected window. To select a different window, tap the Tab key and the selection box will move one spot to the right until it circles back to the top left corner. You can cycle through all your programs this way, and once you've found the one you want to open, let go of the Alt key and watch it open. So you hold down the Alt key and then tap on the Tab key, tap on the Tab key, tap on the Tab key until you get to the program you want to, or window you want to be in. Because I've seen people try and hold down the Alt key and just lay on the Tab key, and it just switches window, switches window, switches window. So do it, tap, tap, tap. This powerhouse shortcut allows you to quickly jump to any open Word document, Excel spreadsheet, Outlook folders, internet browser windows, so you can quickly look at the spreadsheet for the budget updates, navigate to that important email from your boss, check your organization's website, and finish that report in Word without picking up your mouse. Use this shortcut to get nominated for the Most Productive Employee of the Month. I also found it really useful if you're presenting or sharing your screen in Zoom or WebEx or Teams, and you can't seem to get to your taskbar quickly enough. Alt-Tab really helps if I need to switch to another window I have open while I'm sharing my screen or while I'm in a meeting and I can't seem to get to my taskbar. So very, very helpful. Use it all the time. Alt-Tab. Okay. So let's take a break. I want to test what you know. What is the keyboard shortcut to select all?
Okay, if you haven't already answered in chat, I've opened a polling panel. You can select your option there. A is Control S, B Control W, C Windows D, D Control A, and E Alt Tab. Which of these combinations will get us select all? Which keyboard shortcut? And look at that, everyone. Well done. We have 100% for Control A.
Excellent. And it's helpful that it starts with the letter A, Control, and then A for all. Yeah, works. Not all keyboard shortcuts are like that, but there you go. So thanks for answering. The correct answer was D, Control A, and that selects all the text or objects on a page. You can then copy, cut, paste, move them to a different document, whatever you need to. So there you go. And before,
Yeah, that's you.
That's you.
Yeah, before we move on, I want everyone to know that sometimes that polling panel collapses the chat and participants panels. So you may need to open those back up by clicking on the word chat with the little arrow next to it, as well as the participants panel. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, shortcut number 6, Windows E, okay, which will launch File Explorer from your desktop. So File Explorer is how we navigate and manage our computer's folders and files. Think about the number of times we grab our mouse to navigate our computer's files and folders. How many mouse clicks does it take to access File Explorer? Use the Windows E key, Windows E shortcut to eliminate extra steps and save this time for more important tasks. Control plus and control minus are zoom in and zoom out. I use those all the time because I'm constantly having to make things bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller, bigger, smaller. So this shortcut will come in handy when we're trying to read smaller print in a PDF document or web page. Press Control and the plus key to zoom in, or press Control and the minus key to zoom out. Your eyes will thank you. A tip for this shortcut is to press and hold the Control key with the little finger on your left hand, and then press the plus or minus key with your pointer finger on your right hand. Each time you press the plus or the minus, you zoom in a little bit, and then you go the other way if you zoom out a little bit. So I usually keep the Control key pressed down until I get to the desired size. And I'll just give you one more keyboard shortcut. If you've zoomed in a lot or zoomed out a lot, if you press Control and the number 1, it'll bring you back to 100% on a web page and in a PDF file. So Control plus, Control minus, and then sometimes I'm so huge, instead of press Control minus a bunch of times, I'll just do Control 1 and it'll take me back to 100%. So there you go. So ready for the next essential shortcut? Windows S. This will open up your search. Have you ever needed to find a document or file for a meeting that starts in 5 minutes? You need it and you need it now. The Windows key plus S will open up the search bar, which allows you to search for files, folders, and applications. Just type the name of the file, folder, or application to quickly find what you're looking for. Just note, if you need something from your email, you'll need to search through your email application directly rather than using this shortcut. Okay? Yep. Okay. Thanks, Matt, for putting that in the chat. Control F is find. How many of you manually scan a document, scrolling up and down, looking for the mention of a word or person's name? Did you know there's a quicker way to do that? Control F opens up a small box where you can enter the word you're looking for and easily find it in Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and even PDFs and web browsers. Careful though, in Outlook, it has a different use and you might end up forwarding an email. So just be careful. And I can't resist giving you another bonus. Control H is closely related, but it opens up the find and replace. So you can just use this feature in Word to easily replace all instances of a word in a document. You type the word you want to find in the top field, and then you type the word you want to replace it with in the field below. All right, we're almost there. Ready for number 10? Last essential keyboard shortcut. Yeah, baby. Undo. Gosh, sometimes wish I had one of those in life. Oh well. Control Z. Undo. One of my most often used keyboard shortcuts is Control Z, which undoes whatever action I've just completed. If, for example, I move an email or file to the wrong folder, I just press Control Z and it pops back. If you accidentally delete text, images, or other information from a document, it's a great way to get it back completely. But take care, if you wait too long to undo an action, autosave will make the change permanent. So it's best to use this shortcut immediately after you've done something you want to undo. The sibling to this shortcut is Control Y, which is redo. You just press Control Z one too many times, so you can press Control Y to redo an action that you just undid. And there you have it, 10 essential shortcuts to help you increase your productivity and get you on your way to saving 64 hours every year. And we've only just begun to scratch the surface. Remember to refer to your handout for even more. Control Y, undo. Yep. Okay. So time to test your knowledge again. What is the keyboard shortcut to launch File Explorer?
Okay, please notice there's the Slido polling panel again on the right-hand side of your screen. Please click the best option that you think for launching File Explorer. Is it A, Windows plus E, B, Control plus Control minus, C, Windows plus S, D, Control plus F, and E, Control Z? And we've got a vast majority in the poll for A, Windows plus E,
Looks good.
and the chat as well. So it is A.
It is A. Yep, the correct answer is A, Windows E. This will open up the File Explorer without you having to go to the Start menu. Remember, these are just 10 essential shortcuts. There are many more listed in your handouts, some for beginners and some more for more advanced users. Does anyone have any more questions before we move on to best practices?
If you do have a question, raise your hand or type it in the chat. Let's see, no, none yet. I might have one here.
Okay.
What keys show what windows are currently open and how to get to those?
So if you hold down, there's two ways to do it. Alt Tab. If you hold down the Alt key and tap on Tab,
yeah,
that will open up the Windows switcher, the switcher, and you would see from there which windows you have open, and then you can keep pressing down, keep holding down Alt, and then tap on Tab until you highlight the window you want to be in. So let's see, let me get to the right window. The other way to do it is on a newer computer. If you hold down the Window key and tap on Tab, that's called the desktop switcher. So in newer versions of Windows, you can have multiple desktops. So that gets a little bit more complicated. But I would recommend holding down the Alt key and then tap on Tab. And then, so tap on Tab, don't hold it down. And then you tap on it to move to the open programs. So I think that would be the one you would want to use. So yep, Alt plus Tab. Okay. Is there a key to help select certain text, like in the middle of a document? Yes and no. there is, so I see that question. So if you're in a Word file and you want to select using the keyboard, I'll use Shift and the arrow keys. So if you hold down the Shift key and tap your arrow key to the right or to the left or up and down, and I use that in Excel a bunch, that will select text. And if you do like Control Shift and the right arrow key, it'll go a couple of words at a time. And in Excel, if you use Control Shift and the down arrow key, it will select an entire column from the first row to the next blank row that it sees. And the same would be true for Control Shift and the right arrow key. So Shift plus the arrow keys are ways to select in most programs. And there's some modifier keys on that one as well. So I'd be happy to answer more of that. And I'm not sure if those keyboard shortcuts are in your handout. So especially the Excel ones, Control Shift down arrow and Control Shift right arrow, very helpful. So hopefully that answers the question. And there is another good one. It's a keyboard mouse combo in Word. If you hold down the Control key and tap on and click with your mouse on any letter in a sentence, it will select that entire sentence. So it is a keyboard mouse shortcut, but I always tell somebody says, okay, well, what letter should I click on? I'm like, well, let's say you have a really long sentence, click on the letter E. There's bound to be a letter E in a sentence. So you hold down the Control key and then click on the letter E in a sentence, and it will actually select that entire sentence. So there you go. So we can address more of those, but you think, so we've gone through our best practices. You think we're good, Matt?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah. And I keep putting in the questions, and if I can think of them, mind you, I'm not looking at a keyboard shortcut thing here, and this is just off the top of my head. So our final topic today is tips and best practices. Okay. Let's start by discussing best practices for keyboard shortcuts. Okay. Well, commit to using them. All right. First step, commit to using them. This is a critical first step. In order for anything we do in life to be effective, we must first decide that it's essential and then commit to doing or using it. Shortcuts are no different. Yes, this is another thing you'll have to learn or refresh your memory on, but in the long run, it will be worth the commitment. So make up your mind that shortcuts are essential and then commit to using them. All right. Start out slow. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay. This might be a big move for some of you. Trying to memorize all the shortcuts we've talked about could be overwhelming. So start out small and build. Sometimes we become so excited to test out our new skills that we can bite off more than we can chew. Pick a few shortcuts to learn and start using them. Once you know those, those shortcuts, choose another one to learn, and remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. Make them relevant. We've shown you quite a few examples of functions and shortcuts and provided you with a comprehensive list in your handouts. Start by thinking about the tasks you do every day. Then review the list and pick out shortcuts you think will help you the most. Some of you may do the same sort of tasks, but how you do them may be different. A shortcut that works for Nancy may not work for Tom. Remember, you're the one using them, so choose shortcuts that will help you make the best of your use of your time. So here are some universal shortcuts. Start by using the universal shortcuts. Choose shortcuts that can be used in many different applications. And they also work on a Mac, by the way. It's just, instead of the control key, it's the command key for those of you who might have a Mac at home, but these all work on a Mac as well. So just might as well learn them. So there are, for example, Control C for copy, Control X for cut, and Control V for paste work nearly everywhere. It's easy to remember these commands. And I have a trick for remembering Control V. So a lot of people are like, why is it V? Why isn't it P for paste? But Control P is print. So Control V for paste, it's sticky like Velcro. So Velcro is sticky, so paste is sticky. But the other way to remember it is if you look at your keyboard, Control C comes, well, actually, if you look at your keyboard, the letter X is next to the letter C, which is next to the letter V. So you have cut, copy, paste right next to each other on the keyboard. So sometimes trying to remember these things using little tricks can help you. So V for Velcro, that's paste. Create a cheat sheet. And last but not least is create a cheat sheet. No one expects you to memorize these shortcuts right away. After you've identified the shortcuts that will help you save time and become more productive, make a cheat sheet and keep it near so you can refer to it. The more you use a shortcut, the better you'll remember it. After a while, you may find you can update your cheat sheet to include other less used but still helpful shortcuts. Okay. And now there you have it, 5 best practices to help you transition to using keyboard shortcuts. Now I've got one more question for you. Which one of these best practices will you start with?
Okay, once again, there's our polling panel. Please click on the option that you will start with. A, commit to using them. B, start out slow. C, make them relevant. D, use universal shortcuts like cut, copy, paste. Or E, create a cheat sheet. So these all look like great responses, but which one will you do first? How about that? Where are you going to start?
Yeah, so yeah, people are starting in a lot of cheat sheets. And when it comes to creating a cheat sheet, you could print out the one we've given you. Using them. Yeah, commit to using them. I think that's a good one. But you can always highlight them too if you don't want to write it out. Just highlight the ones that you're going to use most often. And then I find by the end of my time, all of a sudden the whole sheet is highlighted. But you highlight the ones that you're going to use most often and keep them handy. But yeah, I find for myself, it's commit to using them. Really take a moment to say, I am not going to do I'm not going to right click to copy, I'm going to do Control C. So something like that. And one other best practice I wanted to mention, when you're using the modifier keys, what you want to do is you never want to try to press Control C at the same time. It never works. So I always recommend holding down the modifier key first and then tapping on the catalyst key on the other key. So let's say you highlight text and you want to copy it, hold down the control key and then tap on the letter C. And I always wish Word would do like take a picture so I would know it worked. But because a lot of people try to hold them both down at the same time, and typically your finger doesn't move that way. The keyboard will pick up one click or one hit of the key before the other, and all of a sudden it thinks you typed the letter C as opposed to Control C. So I always tell folks, hold down the catalyst key or hold down the modifier key and then tap on the other key. So yeah, work from there. E, good, all right. So great, excellent. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Regardless of your choice, you will become more productive, 64 hours, by using functions and shortcuts. Before we move on, does anyone have any questions about best practices?
Okay, any questions now? You can raise your hand or type them in chat. And we're at about 10:50 here, so there will also be time for Q&A after the webinar. All right, yeah, let's keep rolling and see what we get, Eleonora.
Okay. Sounds good. My final bit of advice is to do an internet search. The Microsoft Support website has a list of keyboard shortcuts sorted by operating system, Windows 7 through 11, and then by specific use. We've included a link to the Microsoft Support General Keyboard Shortcuts page in your handouts. In addition to Microsoft, you can find information on the web by doing internet search for specific keyboard shortcuts you're looking for. For example, you can search keyboard shortcut select all in Google or another search engine. Before we close, I would like to ask you one more question. What is one thing that you have learned today that you can apply when you go back to work?
Okay, please type your ideas about the one thing you learned. You learned a lot, but what's that one thing you can't wait to try out when you get back? Please let us know in the chat box. There we go, multiple new shortcuts.
Yeah, Control W, yep.
I learned, new for me today was that the 100% zoom, Control 1.
Control 1.
That's a fun one.
Yep. And it's another mouse keyboard shortcut that in Word, if you hold down the Control key and use the roller on your mouse, that actually zooms you in and out on Word. But so there's even that. There's a lot of mouse keyboard shortcuts too. Alt-Tab, yeah, Alt-Tab is really great. Yep, Alt-Tab, Alt-Tab. Yeah, that's a really great thing. And the function keys, and you can look those up. So yeah, lots of Windows Tab. Yep. Yeah, Window Tab will work too. You just have to be careful with that in the newer version of Windows because it switches desktops. So Control Y,
Okay.
Control Z, yeah, great. That's good. We got a lot of good ones. Oh, yeah, toggle between, yep, lots of good ones. All right. So thanks for sharing part of your day with us. Before we move into the question and answer period, I'd like to turn this over to our webinar host, Matt, who will talk to you about upcoming webinars and the course evaluation.
Thank you, Ellie.